Behind every legend lies a reason. This is Myth and Motive.
The air in the cabin grew thick with the metallic scent of ozone, a sharp, electric warning that something was deeply wrong. His fingers, slick with cold sweat, traced the rough, damp wood of the wall, feeling a sticky residue that wasn't there before the storm hit. A low, wet scratching began inside the walls, a sound like thick claws dragging through rotten timber, moving in time with the frantic drumming of his own heart. Then, a whisper, not from outside, but from inside his own skull, a voice that was both his and utterly alien, suggesting things the conscious mind couldn't bear to hold. A primal dread took hold, locking his joints, as the temperature plummeted and his breath hitched, frosting the suddenly frigid air. This was the moment his reality fractured, not from the lightning strike outside, but from the violation happening within the very architecture of his mind. He was no longer just a man trapped in a storm. He was becoming the prison for a consciousness that was not his own. And the worst part, the thing rewiring him didn't want him dead. It needed his living brain to finish the connection. This isn't a superhero story. This is the true story of a man whose body became a prison, guided by a force he cannot control. We open on a serene suburban street in Austin, Texas. A man, John, is laughing at a barbecue. Then he's jogging, the rhythmic thud of his feet, the only sound. And then he stops. He looks down, utterly confused, at his own hands. Meet John Miller, a regular guy from Austin, a project manager, a father of two, a man whose biggest worry was whether his lawn was greener than his neighbor's, until one Saturday afternoon, in hill country, when the sky turned the color of bruised metal. John and his friend Mike were hiking Barton Creek Greenbelt, already running behind schedule. As the sky darkened with approaching storm clouds, John insisted they could still outpace the weather. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and damp earth, a warning they chose to ignore. Their confidence would prove to be a dangerous miscalculation. The storm didn't approach. It assaulted the landscape. Rain fell in relentless, punishing sheets. The wind screamed through the canyon with a hollow, hungry sound. They were exposed, stranded on the tallest, most skeletal point for miles. The air began to hum with an electric current, raising the fine hairs on my neck. My gaze snapped to John, and I saw it, an eerie, spectral blue light. It wasn't a steady glow, but a sickly, dancing luminescence. It clung to his backpack frame, pulsing with a quiet, unnatural energy. Mike hurled himself into a gully. John stood petrified. Then the cosmos itself extended a digit of pure, blinding fire. The air crackled with ozone, and a low, whirling hum. A deafening, sustained crack of thunder tore the world apart. The screen whites out, then resolves into a rain-soaked tableau. Mike's desperate scream for John cuts through the relentless patter of the storm. John lay there, motionless, the air carrying the faint, acrid scent of ozone and burnt fabric. For over 60 seconds, John's heart offered no beat. He was clinically dead. Mike, a former EMT, pounded his chest and breathed life back in. The ambulance arrived as the storm's ozone scent still hung thick in the air. Lightning had entered through his shoulder, causing a fractal burn down his torso before exiting through his hip. Doctors called him a miracle. First-degree burns, cardiac arrest, yet no major organ damage. 3 days later, John regained consciousness. That's when the strangeness began. Back home, a subtle wrongness settled into John's bones. The air carried a faint metallic scent, but every surface felt unnaturally cold to his touch. A deep, vertiginous unease followed him from within. He dismissed the nausea as trauma, a side effect from medication, but the dizziness followed a distinct pattern. In his kitchen, an overwhelming magnetic pull would seize him, compelling him to face the northwest corner. A faint scent of ozone and damp earth seeped from that direction, prickling his skin. Each time, a primal dread tightened his chest, whispering that this was no ordinary disorientation in the supermarket, and brace against the freezer arm. Vertigo so violent it forced him to vomit, but only when facing east. John. It felt like being on a ship that never stopped tilting. A ship that was my own body, and the captain steering this wretched vessel, it was magnetism. Sarah found her husband one night, rigid in the backyard at 3 a.m. His voice trembled as he whispered, "I can't turn my head, Sarah. It hurts if I try." The damp night air carried the faint scent of ozone and wet earth around his motionless form. In that moment, Sarah realized she was witnessing a terror she'd never seen in him before. A primal dread had taken hold. The medical gauntlet began. MRIs, EEGs, consultations with top neurologists in Houston. The final diagnosis was a chilling fusion, a rare form of synesthesia, and permanent vestibular damage, all traced back to that single, catastrophic electrical surge. His world's new foundation was built on fractured senses, and a body forever out of balance. The lightning strike had magnetized his internal compass. His brain's sense of direction fused with his physical equilibrium. He didn't merely feel north, his entire body now demanded alignment with it. At 5 o'clock, John's world narrowed to a compass of suffering. Sleep offered no refuge, only the rigid geometry of the north-south axis, his body a prisoner to an invisible alignment. In the fluorescent glare of a shopping mall, the world tilted. Disorientation washed over him. A sudden vertigo that buckled his knees. He crumpled to the cold tile floor. The murmur of a gathering crowd, a distant hum against the roaring in his ears. His life had become a map, and every coordinate led to misery. Driving became a torment. Each turn defied his fundamental sense of stability. He lost his job, and the pity in his children's eyes settled into a constant, dull pain. The man who had survived the lightning strike was now a prisoner within an invisible, humming grid. A faint scent of ozone clung to him, a permanent reminder of the current that now held him captive. I'm not a man. I'm a weather vane, a broken instrument, corroded by something I can't name. I can pinpoint true north within a 2-degree margin, but looking my wife in the eyes across the breakfast table makes the air thicken with a dread and taste. The breaking point arrived during his daughter's school play, where she held the lead role. As the family sat in the northeast-southwest aligned auditorium, every second of facing the stage became a neurological battle. The air grew heavy with the scent of old wood and dust, amplifying his internal struggle. A primal dread took hold as he realized he was fighting against his own mind's wiring. A wave of nausea swelled into a crushing tide. Mid-performance, he lurched into the aisle, retching into a metal bin as his daughter's solo began. The acidic stench of bile filled his senses, sharp and metallic. From the stage, her clear voice suddenly wavered, cracking under an unseen weight. The air in the auditorium grew thick and cold, a palpable dread settling over the empty seats. Her song hitched, then fractured completely into silence. Through the ringing in his ears, he heard her final, tear-choked whisper. That was it. The shame etched across his face wasn't his own. It belonged to the entity coiled within him. We knew the only way forward was to destroy it. John became consumed by a radical, experimental treatment. Transcranial magnetic stimulation. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and a faint, coppery tang. The doctors proposed a desperate gambit. Targeted magnetic pulses to scramble the faulty neural wiring. They offered no guarantees, only stark warnings that hung thick in the sterile air. The treatment might achieve nothing, leaving the haunting status quo untouched. Or worse, it could unravel what little remained, plunging everything into deeper, irreversible shadow. The machine could erase parts of him, permanently altering his very being. John, I'd rather be a vegetable facing the right way than a conscious compass. The magnetic coils thrummed to life, a contained electrical storm fighting the tempest in John's mind. Each pulse fired with a deep, resonant thump that vibrated through the room's metal floor. The air grew thick with the sharp scent of ozone and the hum of immense power. John's jaw clenched, every muscle taut against the invasive force probing his consciousness. For John, it was an earthquake. The internal pull he'd endured for 18 months began to spin. North became south, east swirled into west. Directions dissolved into chaos. The air thickened with the scent of ozone, a metallic taste coating his tongue. He screamed, a raw sound swallowed by the sudden, oppressive stillness. And then, silence. Not external silence, internal silence. The relentless pull was gone. His eyes opened. The world had become motionless. For the first time since the strike, he could gaze anywhere without the world tilting. He wept with profound relief. He returned home, embraced his daughter, and looked into her eyes, believing the nightmare was over. That first night, a dry, metallic thirst clawed at his throat and dragged him from sleep. The air in his bedroom felt thick and stale, carrying a faint, sour odor of decay. In the profound quiet, a single, distinct drip of water echoed from somewhere down the hall. I shuffled to the kitchen in the pitch black, guided only by memory. My fingers found a glass, and the faucet's stream filled the silence. Then, on pure instinct, I turned and faced the blank wall, and I just stood there, frozen, as a cold, damp scent seeped from the plaster. For 10 agonizing minutes I remained there, trapped in that suffocating darkness, until Sarah's trembling hand finally found mine in the void. The treatment didn't cure him. It inverted his very essence. Now his breath smells of ozone and rot, and his touch leaves a cold, sticky residue that whispers of wrongness. His conscious mind was free, but his subconscious, his muscle memory, his body's ancient wiring, it still knew. In moments of fatigue, distraction, or darkness, his body defaults to its old programming. It quietly, automatically, aligns itself with a forgotten rhythm. A cold, metallic scent fills the air as his bones settle into a shape they were never meant to hold. Not to the north, but to the south-southeast. Every single time, a metallic scent, like ozone after a storm, seeped into the room. The air grew dense and cold, clinging to his skin with a damp, unnatural chill. From somewhere beyond the walls, a faint, rhythmic scratching began, like nails on old wood. The pattern was undeniable, a directive not whispered, but carved into the very fabric of his nights. Moonlight sliced through the window, illuminating Sarah's sleeping form. John stood rigid by the glass, his body a statue in the pale glow. Not a muscle twitched as he faced a single, fixed point in the darkness outside. The air in the room grew thick and cold, carrying a faint, metallic scent. A single tear traced a path down John Miller's cheek, left untouched. The lightning didn't kill him. It rewired his reality with an absolute, terrible truth. Now, even in sleep, his body remembers muscles tensing with the memory of that electric current. The air still carries the faint, metallic scent of ozone, a ghost of the storm that changed everything. He has no compass for our world, but a lodestone for a ghost. He tracks a memory, a single, violent bolt of electricity permanently etched into his soul. The real question isn't what the lightning did to him, it's what absolute, terrifying truth your own body is hiding from you. The final screen fades to absolute blackness. Text materializes in stark white, starkly contrasting to the consuming dark. The words hang there, a final, chilling truth suspended in the void. Then, the screen holds on that darkness, leaving only the echo of that terrible revelation.